Deep in the Nevada desert lies Lovelock Cave, a site that hides a chilling legend. Local Paiute tribes tell of giant red-haired beings, over 10 feet tall, who once ruled the land before being wiped out. But is this just a myth, or did a race of giants really exist beneath the sands of Lovelock? For over a century, archaeologists, locals, and conspiracy theorists have debated whether the Lovelock giants were real. Our mission: to separate myth from possible history, examining the evidence, the bones, and the silence surrounding the truth. In the scorching deserts of Nevada lies a cave that hides one of America's strangest mysteries. A story of giants, red-haired beings said to tower over ordinary humans, buried deep beneath Lovelock's sands. For decades, archaeologists, locals, and conspiracy theorists have searched for the truth. But what if I told you that bones were found and then mysteriously vanished? Today, we re-diving deep to uncover the truth behind the giants of Lovelock, the lost race hidden beneath Nevada's desert. Were they myths, mutation, or a hidden chapter of human history that the world was never meant to see? Beneath the endless, sun-scorched sands of Nevada, far from the flashing lights of Las Vegas and the hum of civilization, lies a place almost forgotten by time, Lovelock Cave. To the untrained eye, it's just another hollow in the desert cliffs, carved by nature over millennia. But to those who know its story, Lovelock Cave isn't just a natural formation. It's a tomb, a secret vault hiding traces of something that should not exist, the remains of giants. For generations, the local Paiute people told stories about a strange race of towering beings, the Si-Te-Cah, red-haired cannibals who once ruled the land before the tribes rose up against them. These were not mythic gods or spiritual metaphors. They were said to be flesh and blood, standing up to 12 feet tall, with a hunger for human flesh and an arrogance that knew no bounds. The legend says the Paiutes fought them for centuries, driving them into the cave, setting fires at its mouth until the air ran out and the giants perished inside. Centuries later, that very cave, the one whispered about in ancient tales, would give up its secrets once more. But the story that unfolded in the early 1900s would shake archaeologists, ignite conspiracy theories, and leave us with more questions than answers. Imagine this: the year is 1911. Two miners, David Hart and James Pooh, are not searching for giants or ancient history. They re-after something far less mythical: bat guano, a valuable fertilizer. They shovel through layers of ancient droppings when suddenly they uncover strange artifacts buried deep within the cave floor. Tools, baskets, and even bones that seem far too large to belong to any ordinary man. That discovery sparked one of Nevada's most fascinating and controversial archaeological excavations. Over the next 2 decades, hundreds of artifacts were unearthed, but it wasn't just the artifacts that captured attention. It was the stories that followed. Oversized sandals that could fit a man nearly 10 feet tall, skeletal remains far larger than average human dimensions, and strands of reddish hair, the same detail the Paiute elders had described generations earlier. But then, something strange happened. As quickly as the evidence appeared, it began to disappear. Museum records went missing. Bones were misplaced, reports were redacted, and the official narrative began to shift from one of wonder to one of denial. The Smithsonian reportedly collected many of the remains, but to this day, there's no trace of them in their archives. Skeptics say it's all exaggeration. Believers say it's a cover-up. And somewhere in between lies a truth buried as deep as the cave itself. Why would anyone want to hide proof of giants? Was it because such evidence would rewrite the history of humanity, proving that another race, taller, stronger, and perhaps far more ancient than us, once walked this very land? Or was it simply a case of sensationalized myth tangled with half-understood archaeology? Tonight, we're going to peel back the layers of this mystery to examine what really lies beneath Nevada's desert sands. We'll look at what the Paiute legends actually said, what the excavators found, and how the story evolved from folklore into one of the most perplexing historical enigmas of the American West. Somewhere between myth and science, between legend and truth, stands the shadow of a race that refuses to be forgotten. The question is, were they ever real at all? Or is the desert itself playing tricks on our imagination? Long before miners ever dug into the Lovelock Cave, before archaeologists brought their tools and theories, and long before Nevada even had a name, the Paiute people told stories of a terrifying enemy that once roamed their ancestral lands. They called them the Si-Te-Cah, a name that roughly translates to tule eaters, referring to the fibrous water plants found near Nevada's ancient lake beds. But these weren't ordinary beings, and their name, while simple, hides a legend that reaches into the oldest corners of Native American memory. According to Paiute oral tradition, the Si-Te-Cah were giants, towering, red-haired cannibals who lived in the region long before the tribes settled there. They were said to be strong beyond measure, able to outrun horses and tear trees from the earth. Their skin was pale, their eyes deep-set, and their hair, a strange fiery red that shimmered under the desert sun. The Paiutes say they came from the north, sweeping through the valleys and mountains, hunting not for animals, but for humans. They were not mythical beasts, but an intelligent and fearsome race, organized, cunning, and merciless. The stories tell of raids that left villages burned and families vanished. The Paiutes, who were smaller in stature but united in number, were forced to hide in the hills, watching helplessly as the giants terrorized their lands. Yet even among destruction, the Paiutes remembered everything, every detail, every description, every atrocity. For centuries, they passed the story down through generations, as both a warning and a testament to their survival. But how do you fight giants? The legend tells that after countless years of conflict, the Paiute tribes from surrounding regions finally joined forces. They set a trap, cornering the Si-Te-Cah in what is now known as Lovelock Cave. The giants, outnumbered but still fierce, retreated into the cave's darkness. The tribes demanded they come out and face justice. When the giants refused, the Paiutes gathered brush and reeds, piled them at the mouth of the cave, and set them ablaze. The flames roared and smoke poured into the cave, choking the air inside. Those who tried to escape were met with a rain of arrows. The rest, according to legend, never emerged again. The Paiute said that the cave became their tomb, sealing away the Si-Te-Cah forever beneath layers of soot, stone, and time. To the tribes, the battle marked the end of an era, the final victory over a monstrous race that had ruled the region for untold generations. They honored their ancestors who fought that day and passed the legend down, not as fantasy, but as history, as something their elders had witnessed and their people had survived. What makes this story even more fascinating is how specific it is. Tribal elders described the giants not as supernatural beings, but as real, physical creatures with red hair, immense size, and human-like intelligence. They spoke of tools and weapons the giants used, and of strange sounds that echoed in the cave long after the fire had burned out. To them, the Si-Te-Cah weren't spirits or demons. They were flesh and blood, a different kind of human, now gone but not forgotten. Centuries later, when white settlers arrived in Nevada and heard these stories, many dismissed them as folklore or exaggeration. But when miners in the early 1900s began finding large bones, oversized sandals, and reddish, hair buried beneath the guano of Lock Cave details that perfectly matched the ancient Paiute legends, people began to wonder if the story might hold a grain of truth. Could the legend of the Si-Te-Cah have been a historical record, carefully preserved through oral tradition, waiting for the world to finally listen? The question lingers like a whisper across the desert wind. If these red-haired giants were truly destroyed in Lovelock Cave, what else did they leave behind? And what might still be hidden beneath the sands, waiting to be uncovered after all these centuries? In 1911, the quiet desert near Lovelock, Nevada, was the last place anyone expected to uncover one of the most debated archaeological mysteries in American history. Two miners, David Hart and James Pugh, weren't historians or scientists. They were guano miners, scraping the cave walls for bat droppings, a valuable commodity used as fertilizer. The cave itself was unremarkable at first glance, a dusty chamber carved by time and wind, stretching about 150 feet into the hillside. But as their shovels cut deeper into the layers of earth, they began to find objects that simply didn't belong there. At first, it was simple tools, woven baskets, carved stone weights, and hunting implements buried under layers of guano. But then came something far stranger. Hart reportedly uncovered a massive jawbone, far too large for any normal human. They began to find fragments of skulls, oversized bones, and sandals that could fit a man twice their size. Something was very different about this cave, and word of their discovery spread quickly through Nevada's mining towns. Soon after, the University of California and later the Nevada Historical Society were drawn to Lovelock Cave to conduct a formal excavation. What they found there would astonish both scientists and locals alike. Beneath layers of guano and ash, archaeologists uncovered more than 10,000 artifacts, from intricately woven duck decoys to ancient tools, shells, and remnants of food. It was clear that the cave had once been inhabited, but by whom and when became the central question. Among the discoveries, however, were items that didn't fit into the normal framework of Native American history. Reports from early excavators and miners mentioned skeletal remains measuring over 8 and even 10 feet tall, along with massive sandals and handprints in the soft clay walls that seemed far too large to belong to ordinary people. Even more puzzling were the strands of red hair found among the remains, a detail that echoed almost perfectly the Paiute legend of the red-haired giants who once terrorized their ancestors. Local newspapers at the time eagerly picked up the story. The Lovelock Review-Miner and other regional papers published reports claiming that giant skeletons had been unearthed in the desert cave. Photographs were rumored to exist, and miners swore they had seen bones too large to be mistaken for any normal human. Yet, as the excavation continued and more official institutions became involved, the tone of the reports began to change. The Smithsonian Institution allegedly collected several of the largest bones for study, but after that the trail went cold. The bones were never displayed, and no public records of them were ever found again. The official archaeological reports that survived described a prehistoric culture of normal-sized humans who once lived in the area, possibly part of the northern Paiute ancestors dating back thousands of years. The red hair, they said, was merely a result of chemical changes caused by burial conditions, not evidence of a separate race. But that explanation didn't satisfy everyone. Too many miners, too many early witnesses, insisted on what they had seen with their own eyes. Bones of giants, real physical evidence that vanished just as quickly as it appeared. Whispers of a cover-up began to circulate. Some claimed that institutions like the Smithsonian suppressed discoveries that didn't fit the accepted timeline of human evolution. Others suggested the bones might have been quietly destroyed or locked away to avoid controversy. After all, if true, the existence of a race of giant humans living in North America would rewrite everything we know about prehistory. The Lovelock Cave dig became more than just an archaeological site. It became a crossroads between science and legend. What was once a miner's curiosity turned into a story that blurred the line between myth and discovery. Beneath the dry, cracked surface of the Nevada desert, a narrative was being unearthed, one that hinted that perhaps the Paiute legends were not just tales told around the fire, but memories of a reality buried deep within the earth itself. As the dust settled around the Lovelock Cave excavation, the excitement that once filled the Nevada desert began to shift into something darker, a growing sense that the full story was not being told. At first, newspapers had printed bold headlines about giant skeletons and strange red-haired remains. Locals spoke of massive skulls that miners had pulled from the cave floor, and eyewitnesses described bones long enough to make even the tallest man seem small. But within just a few years, those same reports began to vanish from public record. The narrative had changed. Suddenly, official accounts mentioned only normal-sized early inhabitants. The giants, it seemed, had been erased. Scientists claimed that there was a logical explanation for everything found at Lovelock. The bones, they said, were misidentified. The hair, once a striking reddish hue, was simply dark brown that had faded over time due to chemical reactions and exposure to the cave-S minerals. The massive sandals and oversized tools were dismissed as errors of perception or relics of artistic exaggeration. Yet despite the neat explanations, something didn't add up. Why had early eyewitnesses, miners, archaeologists, even museum staff all described bones that no one could later locate? According to early documentation, Some of the most unusual remains were sent to the Smithsonian Institution for further study, and that's where the trail abruptly ends. No museum records, no public exhibits, no photographs that can be verified. When researchers later inquired about the Lovelock findings, the Smithsonian reportedly denied having any remains that matched those descriptions. To some, this was proof of nothing more than poor record-keeping. But to others, it became evidence of something far more deliberate, a cover-up designed to protect the conventional timeline of human evolution. Because if the giants were real, if a race of red-haired beings taller and stronger than modern humans had once lived in North America, the implications would be enormous. It would mean rewriting not only Native American history, but the global story of humankind. It would challenge archaeology, anthropology, and even theology. Entire academic frameworks could collapse. And for many, that possibility alone was enough to believe that powerful institutions might choose silence over revelation. The Smithsonian has long been accused of suppressing discoveries that fall outside accepted history, from giant skeletons in the Mississippi Valley to anomalous artifacts across North America. While mainstream scientists dismiss these claims as conspiracy, others argue that the pattern is too consistent to ignore. Could it really be coincidence that every time giant bones are found, they vanish into obscurity? Could it be that certain truths about Earth's ancient past are too disruptive to ever be acknowledged publicly? Modern researchers and alternative historians have tried to chase these questions down. They've combed through archives, interviewed descendants of miners, and even revisited the Lovelock Cave itself. Many found traces of truth mixed with decades of silence, fragments of newspaper clippings, lost letters, and field notes hinting that at least some of the early claims might have had substance. But time has done its work. Most of the physical evidence is gone. The cave has been heavily excavated, the bones missing, and any official confirmation long buried under bureaucracy and skepticism. Still, there's something about the Lovelock case that refuses to fade away. Scientists insist the cave's occupants were ordinary humans, early hunter-gatherers, possibly ancestors of the Paiutes. But the oral legends, the eyewitness accounts, and the mysterious disappearance of evidence continue to fuel doubt. Why would miners fabricate such a story when all they wanted was guano profit? Why did early archaeologists describe large bones before later reports erased those details entirely? Some believe the truth lies in the intersection between myth and science, that the Paiute legends may hold more than symbolic meaning, echoing distant memories of an ancient people whose origins we still don't understand. Others believe the truth is locked away in the vaults of forgotten institutions, hidden from view to maintain the order of accepted history. Whatever the reason, the silence surrounding the Lovelock discovery only deepens the mystery, leaving us to wonder what secrets might have been sealed away, not just in the desert cave, but in the archives of human knowledge itself. More than a century after the first excavation, Lovelock Cave still whispers its secrets into the Nevada wind. For archaeologists, historians, and modern explorers, the cave has become more than a dig site. It's a riddle carved into stone. Each time someone tries to solve it, the answers only seem to slip further away. What really happened to the bones that miners claim to have seen? What became of the artifacts that once filled local museums and university archives? And why do so many pieces of this story seem to vanish every time someone gets close to uncovering the truth? In the decades following the 1911 excavation, more research teams returned to Lovelock Cave, hoping to find the missing links between myth and history. They cataloged tools, baskets, weapons, and fragments of fabric, but never again did they officially report finding anything resembling giant skeletons. Yet, scattered through newspaper archives and private letters are accounts that tell a different story. Old clippings from the 1920s describe enormous skulls and bones that dwarfed ordinary human remains. Local ranchers claim to have seen them on display before they disappeared. Even workers at nearby museums once spoke of boxes labeled "Lovelock Cave Giant Bones," stored for years before being quietly removed. The lack of hard evidence has driven many to search for answers on their own. Independent researchers, documentary filmmakers, and even curious locals have ventured into the desert, armed with flashlights, cameras, and open minds. Some return with stories of unearthed artifacts, strange carvings, or hair samples resembling those once reported to be reddish in color. Others find nothing but shadows and silence, as if the cave itself guards its secrets too well. One of the most persistent theories is that many of the artifacts were deliberately removed or misplaced during transitions between museums and universities. Over the decades, records changed hands, collections were reorganized, and in the chaos, smaller findings were forgotten. But those who believe in suppression claim this was no accident. They argue that certain items were intentionally buried, not under earth, but under paperwork and official denials, to ensure the narrative of human history remained simple, familiar, and unchallenged. In recent years, the internet has reignited global fascination with the Lovelock mystery. Photos claiming to show massive skulls or bones have circulated widely, though many have been debunked as fabrications or misidentifications. Yet the persistence of these stories speaks volumes. Something about the legend refuses to die. Even mainstream archaeologists acknowledge that the cave remains one of the richest prehistoric sites in Nevada, holding clues to cultures that existed thousands of years ago. But to the public, that explanation feels incomplete, too neat, too quiet. There's a growing sense that somewhere beneath the surface, more remains undiscovered. Several modern researchers have compared Lovelock Cave to other so-called giant discoveries across North America, enormous burial mounds in the Midwest, elongated skulls found in Peru, and skeletons reportedly uncovered in California and Arizona in the 19th century. Each story follows a similar pattern: sensational discovery, brief public fascination, institutional involvement, and then sudden disappearance. To many, Lovelock isn't an isolated case. It's thus part of a larger pattern of forgotten history. Today, Lovelock Cave is protected and monitored, its excavation sites sealed. Visitors can stand inside the cave, feel the cool air brush their skin, and see the very walls that once held the Si-Te-Cah, if the legends are true. There are still artifacts preserved in museums, including duck decoys, baskets, and tools, officially attributed to a Native American culture dating back over 4,000 years. But for every artifact on display, there are whispers of others, larger, stranger, unaccounted for. Even without the missing bones, something about the cave's energy feels ancient and unsettling. Locals say that when you stand near the mouth of the cave at dusk as the desert turns gold and the shadows stretch long, it's easy to imagine the giants still watching, not from within the cave, but from memory itself. The story endures not because of what was found, but because of what was lost, and the haunting question that keeps echoing through time. What if the Lovelock Cave didn't just hide a legend, but the remnants of a forgotten chapter in human history? As the sun sinks behind Nevada's endless ridges, the Lovelock Cave sits in silence, a hollow wound in the earth that still refuses to tell its full story. For over a century, the legend of the red-haired giants has hovered between history and mythology, between scientific dismissal and public fascination. Every layer of the tale, from the fiery battle described by the Paiutes to the missing bones once claimed by miners, reveals just how thin the line is between what we call truth and what we choose to forget. When we look back at the legends of the Si-Te-Cah, it's hard to dismiss the conviction with which the Paiute elders told their story. To them, these giants were not mythical spirits or exaggerated warriors. They were real beings who left behind scars on their people's memory. Generations preserved that history long before archaeologists came with their notebooks and tools. And then, when the miners dug into Lovelock Cave and found artifacts eerily consistent with those stories, it was as if two worlds, oral tradition and physical evidence, collided for a brief moment in time. But what happened next changed everything. The disappearance of evidence, the shifting narratives, and the quiet corrections in official reports cast long shadows on what could have been one of the most extraordinary discoveries in American archaeology. Were the bones simply misplaced during a time when record-keeping was poor? Or was there something far more deliberate at play, an effort to maintain a comfortable version of human history that leaves no room for giants, anomalies, or the unknown? Even today, that question lingers unanswered. Science, of course, demands proof, measurable, replicable, undeniable. And in that sense, the giants of Lovelock remain unproven. No skeletal remains survive to be studied, no DNA evidence exists, and no museum exhibits display their bones. Yet the absence of proof has not extinguished belief. Instead, it has made the story stronger, turning Lovelock Cave into a symbol of lost knowledge and the eternal struggle between accepted history and the whispers of what might have been. Modern researchers continue to revisit the case, combing through old letters, university records, and archives, hoping to trace even a single bone or artifact that could confirm the miners' claims. Each lead seems to fade into obscurity, but the intrigue never dies. The legend's persistence raises a deeper question. Why do so many ancient cultures, from the Americas to the Middle East, tell stories of giants? Why do civilizations separated by oceans and millennia describe towering beings with strength beyond human measure? Could these be coincidences, or do they echo something once real, buried under centuries of erosion, denial, and disbelief? In the end, perhaps the greatest mystery of Lovelock isn't about the giants themselves, but about humanity's relationship with its own past. We trust science to illuminate truth, but what happens when science chooses silence? We cling to myths for meaning, but what happens when myths start to resemble memory? The Lovelock Cave forces us to confront both, to ask not just what was buried beneath the desert, but what truths might have been buried within our understanding of history itself. Standing at the mouth of the cave, the dry air still carries the faint scent of dust and time. The walls, darkened by age and soot, seem to listen. Every gust of wind feels like a whisper from those who lived, or perhaps died, here long ago. Whether they were giants or not, the story of Lovelock has already become larger than life, a reflection of how humanity seeks the extraordinary, even in the ordinary earth beneath our feet. Some come to the cave searching for bones, others for answers, but all leave with the same haunting thought. Maybe the truth was never meant to be unearthed so easily. Across the shifting sands of Nevada's desert, the story of the Lovelock giants endures, part legend, part archaeology, and part unanswered question. The Paiute people spoke of a red-haired race of giants who once walked this land, towering beings whose hunger and power brought fear to entire tribes. Then came the miners, the archaeologists, and the missing bones, each layer adding more intrigue, more confusion, and more silence. More than a century later, the Lovelock Cave stands as both witness and grave. Its walls have seen history rewritten, its soil disturbed, its secrets pulled into the light only to vanish again into the archives of doubt. Science tells us there were no giants, only misinterpretations and natural decay. Yet the legends persist, as if truth itself is woven into the desert wind. Maybe the mystery of Lovelock isn't about proving whether giants existed. Maybe it's about how we deal with the unknown, how easily humanity buries what doesn't fit into its version of reality. The vanished evidence, the conflicting reports, the enduring oral traditions all remind us that history is not just what we discover, but also what we choose to remember. Somewhere deep within that cave, beneath layers of time and sand, lies the story of who we once were, a reminder that every myth begins with a fragment of truth. And until that final piece is unearthed, the question will remain suspended in the silence of Lovelock's shadows. Were the giants of Nevada real? Or were they the echo of something far older, a forgotten truth the earth still refuses to let go?